players coming from respective countries. Like she's coming from Philippines, which is now a big deal. You know, she's been the biggest ever, you know, tennis player from that country, which is a big country, and there's a big interest.
Well, she's being told X, Y, and Z, and I don't think much. Get out of there.
Filipino tennis ace Alex Eala is set to compete in the singles and doubles events.
Something happened at Indian Wells this weekend that nobody in mainstream tennis media wants to frame correctly. Alex Eala, ranked 32nd in the world just 6 months after sitting outside the top 100, dragged herself back from match point, down at 4-5 in the deciding set, past midnight in the California desert, in front of thousands of Filipino fans who refused to go home. She advanced to face Coco Gauff on Stadium 1 today. The chatter around her name hasn't stopped since January's Australian Open, where her press conference pulled 196,000 YouTube views, nearly double what Djokovic got and 6 times what Grand Slam champion Carlos Alcaraz managed. Underneath all of it, something more combustible is burning. Viral clips, some fabricated, some grounded in real frustration, have put ABC directly in the crosshairs of a fan base that feels mainstream coverage of Eala has never matched the scale of what's actually happening on the court.
Star Alex Eala takes center stage at the BNP Paribas Tennis Paradise in Indian Wells, and of course, Filipino fans turn out in full force to cheer her on.
Of course, I'm very grateful for all the support that's been coming my way, and it's really heartwarming to see that they really they make the effort and they take the time to come out and to support, and it makes the experience for the player totally different.
And the sport's biggest names, Djokovic, Alcaraz, Gauff, Nadal, have been pushing back loudly and on the record. A genuine institutional tension between legacy broadcast power and a 20-year-old from Manila who is breaking every metric they use to measure relevance. Is this a boycott or something more calculated? If you're serious about understanding the full picture, not just the highlights, subscribe now. This channel covers what others won't, because what Djokovic and Alcaraz are actually standing for goes deeper than one headline.
These tournaments are such great experiences for me, you know, especially playing in front of the best crowd ever, and I do my best. I do what I can, and just if I see an opening, I think it's important.
Let's start with what more calculated actually means. The tennis world does not do collective public statements. Players protect their brands, guard their words, and generally avoid wading into controversies that don't directly involve them. That's the unwritten code. You stay in your lane, you manage your image, and you let the sport's official machinery handle the optics. What's been happening around Alex Eala has broken every part of that code, and the name's breaking. It are not minor figures. January 22nd, 2026, Australian Open. Novak Djokovic walks into a press conference after his second-round win over Francesco Maestrelli. A journalist raises the crowd situation, specifically the chaos that had erupted 2 days earlier when Eala's first-round match against Alessia Parks was scheduled on Court 6, a venue that holds a fraction of the crowd that showed up. Fans queued for 2 hours at entry points. Hundreds were turned away entirely and watched on outdoor screens instead. Tennis Australia faced public criticism for the scheduling decision and acknowledged on social media it would recalibrate for future events. The reporter's framing of the question leaned toward overcrowding as a problem. Djokovic's answer went the other direction entirely. Having too much crowd on this or any other tennis tournament is a very good problem to have, he said. I mean, it's a good sign. Obviously, we want more attention, more people coming and wanting to watch the tennis live, follow it, live stream, etc.
Too much crowd on this or any other tennis tournament is a very good problem to have. I think there are much worse problems to have. So I think every tournament wants record-breaking attendance and ticket sales, and that's what I've been hearing actually this year and the last couple of years for most of the slams and tournaments, you know. So I mean, it's a good sign. I mean, obviously we want more attention, more people coming and wanting to watch the tennis live and follow it and live stream.
He didn't stop there. He specifically named Eala. I saw the other day with Alex Eala. Yeah, that's been a talk, which is understandable. There's some players coming from respective countries, like she's coming from the Philippines, which is now a big deal. She's been the biggest ever tennis player from that country, and there's big interest. Things like that happen.
Yes, but again, she's Alex Eala, that's been a talk, and which is understandable. There's some players coming from respective countries, like she's coming from Philippines, which is now a big deal. She's been the biggest ever, tennis player.
Then came the line that reframes the entire debate around how ABC and other mainstream outlets have covered this story. Let's just imagine if there's a lack of people coming or that stands are empty. That's a bigger problem. I mean, this is great. Read that again slowly.
Let's just imagine if there's a lack of people coming, or that stands are empty. That's a bigger problem.
A 24-time Grand Slam champion, a man who has competed at the Australian Open since 2005 and won it 10 times, looked at the Eala situation and said the only real problem would be if nobody showed up. The chaos, the queues, the overcrowded outer courts, the scheduling embarrassment for the tournament, all of it, a good problem. His framing was a direct counter-narrative to the dismissive coverage that framed Filipino fans as a logistical inconvenience rather than a sign of the sport's expanding global reach.
19-year-old lefty Alex Eala from the Philippines could be the next big thing in pro tennis.
This is the goal
My goal is to be able to integrate myself into the WTA circuit more and to be able to handle myself better on court.
Bolted into the spotlight last month after making the semifinals at one of the biggest pro tennis tournaments in the world.
That's not a casual comment. That's a man who understands the media landscape, choosing very deliberately what he validates with his name. Carlos Alcaraz didn't make a speech about Eala. He didn't need to. The numbers said everything. At the 2026 Australian Open, where Alcaraz became the youngest man ever to complete a career Grand Slam by defeating Djokovic in the final, his pre-tournament press conference generated a specific level of interest online. Eala's pre-tournament press conference at the same event drew 196,000 YouTube views, almost twice that of Djokovic, and more than 6 times the amount of eventual champion Carlos Alcaraz. 6 times, not slightly more, 6 times. This is a player ranked 32nd in the world generating 6 times the media. Consumption of the man who just made tennis history.
Of course, the atmosphere in each tournament has been amazing, and it's been a different start this year than any other year I've ever had. So,
sports, Alex Eala makes history in the US as the first Filipino tennis player to compete at the Indian Wells Open.
When mainstream outlets frame Eala's support as hype attached to her nationality rather than earned attention, those numbers are the rebuttal. You cannot manufacture 196,000 press conference views. Algorithms don't care about patriotism. They respond to genuine curiosity and engagement. The Alcaraz comparison isn't a slight against him. It's a measurement of what Eala represents to a global audience that legacy coverage has consistently underestimated. And that underestimation is precisely what has put ABC and similar outlets on the wrong side of this story. If Djokovic's comments were powerful, what Coco Gauff did in Dubai on February 19th was something else entirely. Context matters here. Gauff had just beaten Eala 6-0, 6-2 in the quarterfinals of the Dubai Tennis Championships. A demolition on paper. The crowd throughout the match had been overwhelmingly pro-Eala, chanting her name, willing her back into games she had no business winning on the scoreboard. Gauff, a 2-time Grand Slam champion playing in a tournament she knows well, had to compete against that atmosphere for the full 67 minutes. After the match, she walked to the interview microphone, still the opponent who had just won, and said this: "Thank you guys for coming out here. I know you were mostly supporting Alex, but I have to say it's great to be on a crowded court. I've played this tournament for many years, and to see the stadium full, it means a lot. Also, I'd like to thank Alex for bringing a new demographic to the sport. I really appreciate it. I think it's great." She thanked her opponent, after winning, in front of her opponent's fans.
I know you were mostly supporting Alex, but I have to say it is great to be on a crowded court. I've played this tournament for many years, and to see the stadium full, it means a lot. And also like to thank Alex for bringing a new demographic to the sport. I really appreciate it.
That is not a diplomatic formality. That is a genuine acknowledgement that what Eala is doing for tennis carries weight beyond match results. Gauff has played Dubai for years. She knows what a full stadium feels like versus a half-empty one. When she says seeing it full means a lot, that's comparison speaking, not politeness. The Dubai tournament director Salah Tahlak echoed that sentiment directly, telling the National, "Alexandra Eala was a brilliant addition to the field. She attracted a new demographic to the tennis, and the stadium was sold out for all her matches. People were desperately trying to get tickets, but they were all gone. Sold out, every match, for a player ranked outside the top 30.
Another wonderful win for Alexandra Eala. Thank you, Jasmine, she says. Paolini gracious as ever in defeat. The former champion is out. Alexandra Eala.
That's the context in which ABC's framing of Eala as a nationality-driven hype story starts to look not just dismissive, but factually incompatible with what tournament directors are experiencing on the ground. Rafael Nadal has not been a regular presence in tennis commentary since his retirement. He picks his moments carefully, which makes it significant that after Eala's first-round exit at the Australian Open, a loss that triggered a wave of online criticism toward Eala herself from some corners of the fanbase, Nadal publicly positioned himself in her corner. Kim Clijsters, speaking on her Love All podcast, described it this way. After the Australian Open, where Rafa spoke out about being a little bit of a protector for her as well, because when she lost to Alicia Parks in a close three-setter, she also got a lot of hate from her fans and from the Philippine world, and the fans that support her from her home country. Eala has trained at Nadal's academy in Mallorca since she was 13 years old. The relationship runs deep. But Nadal choosing to publicly step into the conversation around a 20-year-old's loss at a time when he has largely stayed out of the daily cycle of tour commentary signals something about how seriously the sport's biggest figures are taking what happens to her image in the media. Clijsters went further, comparing Eala's cultural status in the Philippines to Michael Jordan's in America, noting that the pressures of that kind of national expectation require active management and support from those around her. That's the ecosystem around Eala right now. Djokovic defending her crowds, Gauff crediting her with expanding the sport's audience, Nadal positioning himself as a shield, Clijsters drawing comparisons to the greatest basketball player in history. These are independent voices, speaking at different times in different cities, reaching the same conclusion.
I'm really happy to advance to the next round. Obviously, it's not in the way I wanted it to end.
Julian, maybe they could schedule him on a bigger court, yes, but again, she's so young and she's just coming through, so the big courts with big names, it's difficult. It's not easy to manage that, but again, it's a good problem to have, to be honest.
This was definitely one of the bigger Filipino turnouts. Also, New York was huge.
Here's where precision matters, because this channel doesn't traffic in fabrication. No verified ABC anchor has been suspended over comments about Eala. No confirmed hot mic moment has been authenticated by any credible news organization. A review of major US and Philippine news outlets, including the Associated Press, Reuters, ESPN, ABS-CBN, and the Philippine Daily Inquirer, shows no reporting of any such incident. What does exist is a documented pattern of viral content across Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube that packages real fan frustration with fabricated incident reports.
I'm a person, and I feel like, people will like you for who you are if you are true to yourself.
Hi everyone, I just wanted to come on here and thank every single one of you for your support, taking the time and effort out of your day to be there and cheer me on with the other girls. It means so much, especially at this time of the year. I couldn't thank you more, and I had such a fun time.
Eala herself addressed this directly. I'm aware that there have been a lot of fake news articles. It is concerning because I see sometimes they get a lot of likes, and it's difficult, I understand, to tell the difference when you see it online. The frustration those videos tap into, however, is grounded in something genuine. When mainstream broadcast coverage frames Eala's crowds as an etiquette problem rather than a cultural breakthrough, when her rise gets treated as a nationality story rather than a competitive one, when her press conference outperforms a Grand Slam champion's by 600% and that goes unreported, that's a gap between reality and coverage that fans feel acutely. The boycott narrative spread because it gave that frustration a villain and a hero. The real story is more complicated and ultimately more interesting. Because what Djokovic, Alcaraz, Gauff, and Nadal are doing isn't a boycott. It's something quieter and more durable. They're simply telling the truth about what they're witnessing, on the record, with their names attached.
This was definitely one of the bigger Filipino turnouts. Also, New York was huge. It was tough because it also depends what court you're on, that you feel the noise and things.
In a media environment where fabricated outrage travels faster than verified fact, that kind of straightforward testimony from the sport's biggest names carries more weight than any suspension or lawsuit ever could. Tonight at Indian Wells, Eala walks onto Stadium 1 for a rematch with Gauff. To be living my dreams and playing in Indian Wells with a lot of people supporting me is something I've dreamed of since I was young, she said on arriving in California. The last time they met, the score was 6-0, 6-2. Eala acknowledged the gap was real, but not permanent. That's not to say that I'm so far out of reach from these players. The biggest takeaway for me, honestly, is that I'm on the right path. She's been on match point and come back. She's been written off and shown up. She's been minimized by coverage that refuses to take her seriously, and responded by generating numbers that force the conversation anyway.
All the emotions are coming because the tension was so high, especially during that second set. She's a great opponent, obviously being top 10 and a former champion here, so to be able to compete with her at this level is a great achievement for me.
The boycott headline got you here. The real story is what keeps you watching. If this kind of analysis, where we separate the noise from what's actually happening, is what you come here for, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. We don't chase fabricated drama. We follow the documented story, which in Alex Eala's case turns out to be more compelling than anything a clickbait channel could invent. Drop your prediction for tonight's Gauff rematch in the comments, and let's see if the right path she's talking about leads somewhere historic at Indian Wells.